presentation. Yeah, you can see it. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, my name is David Guardado, and it's a really big pleasure for me to be here. This is a dream come true, and I really wanted to give a focus on the presentation on one of the questions that CUMiN passed to us, and it's how does hip hop find its way to the classroom in El Salvador and in Central America? To talk about a little bit about myself, I'm a producer and I'm also a community worker. I start doing volunteer work, building emergency houses in dangerous places in El Salvador around 17 years ago. So half my life I've been working with the community. Also was part of the heritage that my parents gave me. They work with the community too. They have their own ONGs, non-profitable. So it's something that it's in my way of being. So I'm a trained musician, and also I have superior studies in acting. So scenic arts, it's something very important for me as well. Okay, with this little, and I'm a hip hopper, and I'm gonna be the same cliche as everyone. Hip hop saved my life. So I'm not a therapist. I wanna make that clear, but we talk about working with with kids in vulnerable communities. So I was one of those kids. So I have lived the process in my flesh. So understanding what is complex trauma, how coping works, and one of the best things that happens to me is that I've been in therapy for the last 16 years. So I keep working on my process. Saying that, we're starting with the first slide, and I really want to talk about context because I want us to understand why hip hop was embraced in the way that it was embraced in Central America and in particular in El Salvador. Central America shares complex history and a history about complex trauma and generational trauma. Why? Because from the moment that Spain came to our lands, we are talking about genocides, dictatorships, armed conflicts, and if we go in to the late 1900s, we are talking about super influence from the US and also out of this war corruption by the states of all Central America behaviors, and also we have massive migration. So I share with you these couple of pics of newspapers. In the first one, when it says conflict, says that is a curfew in the whole country, that this is during the 80s and during the civil war in El Salvador. Just to tell you a little bit something about what is the influence of the US during these conflicts, the US used to send in total around $5,000 million in 12 years of war because they were supporting the military in order to win the war instead of the guerrilla. Is the people from the right, the left, the guerrilla. So if we keep with this, in that moment, a lot of people start migrating to the US because in the history of El Salvador is one of the first options to go. And you will see mass migration until now that you have these caravans of people that goes, I don't know, 5,000 people just walking from El Salvador to the United States. And that's something that is happening now. Imagine during the war times. So in 92, we start a new process in El Salvador. That was the signing of the peace accords. When that happens, the national police was was burned, and that this means that all the people that used to be guerrilla fighters or even a lot of military people start working together there. So we are talking about when these people or these movements, the military and the guerrilla needed young people to fight, they just went on every little town, every public school, and they just grabbed the kids, put it in on a truck, and they take into camps and start training them. So we are talking about kids of 10 to 16 years already shooting for their lives. So that's why I really love that I having the chance to explain this after the previous workshops, because from there we understand that we have a complex trauma history and the generational trauma. So all these kids didn't have regular youth. They were fighting. So they have another way of seeing the world. And after that, the peace accords, a lot of the families that went away started coming back again. So this means that a lot of the kids that were starting to be raised in violence, they change it and they start looking how the life was in the States. So the hip hop was already something, also a big movement in the States. So this is another point that I want to talk is the personal narrative. So when these kids went to the States, these young people went to the States, they saw an opportunity to express themselves through the hip hop, even if it's b-boying, even if it's graffitiing, even if it's rapping, and also DJing. So they start coming back to El Salvador. But when they came back, it wasn't just because there's a lot of documentaries that this is explained in deepness, but when people from Central America get to the States, they start being the point of picking. So wasn't the black people, wasn't the Jews, was a new population in town that you can get picked on. So they were Salvadorians and Central America people. And in one documentary says that they were used to violence. So they start defending themselves in these attacks. So when this happens, and they knew the gang movement also from the state, they started getting into this new thing that was the gangs. So when they came back to El Salvador, they came back with the hip hop, but also they came back with gangs. So during the 90s, it's something that started developing. And if you ask me, the state knew and they just let it happen. So the gangs were something that started growing and growing and recruiting youth, all these people that was broken families, needing somebody to feel support and in order to feel like in a family, and the gangs were giving that opportunity. So a lot of the youth got into the gangs, but also the seed of the hip hop was already put in the Salvadorian land. So one of the first, then we go into the next slide. One of the first elements that started spreading was breaking. And you will see people getting together in downtown studying movements. And because you have people that was being raised in the middle of the hip hop culture in the States, they have a lot of vocabulary. Let's say vocabulary to the amount of movement that you know. So they start sharing vocabulary. The other big element that came was graffiti. Because we have to understand something. El Salvador and Central America has been a land when they are trying to suppress who we are or our identity from a massacre that happens in 1932 to the towns, to the originary people that it's from El Salvador. They were supposed to get a salvoconducto. It's a paper that is going to allow you to walk without being detained, but that was a lie, and they just tried to erase the lineage that we had. So we have been missing a lot of identity through the history of El Salvador. So graffiti gave us a chance to express ourselves and retake that identity. Passing the time, rap started getting to grow. So we are a very young country in terms of hip hop industry, but in terms of hip hop culture, El Salvador just embraced it. We understood it. It gave us a way to express ourselves. And during the 90s, start growing a lot of hip hop groups. We start recording albums in studios that were recording traditional tropical music. So until the 2000, we start having studios that are just for hip hop. And one of the last elements that came was DJing and beat making. Why DJing? Because you really need the equipment. So I'm telling you, 5 years ago, I was like the fifth DJ in having two techniques, two turntables. So it's something that has been evolving very slowly. But we have a very good people representing all of these elements. Another point, El Salvador always was like hip hop pioneer because we have people like B-Boy Milo that he actually was recognized by the Zulu Nation as part of it. So he started sharing what he knew in Central America. He went from to Guatemala to teach b-boying. He went to Honduras to teach b-boying. He went to Nicaragua to teach b-boying, and he went to Costa Rica to teach b-boying. So El Salvador has been always implementing new things and sharing it with the whole region. It's the same thing that happens with the graffiti. If you analyze the story, it's a very good documental called Tlacuilos. It tells the story about the graffiti scene in Central America and also makes a line about the hip hop movement. You will understand that El Salvador has been always stepping up the game, always stepping up the game. And happens the same. People start doing graffiti like the SIA crew. But this is one of the first crews that you will hear from El Salvador. They start traveling to Guatemala, sharing the knowledge, traveling to Honduras, sharing the knowledge. And that's how graffiti started spreading. Rap was something that you didn't need a lot of things to start doing it. So people just start rapping. We needed to talk about what was happening with our countries. And in the last years, people like me, we brought beat making and hip hop education, having the chance to connect with another ONGs. So if we go to the next, what is happening? Okay. Okay, how hip hop got into the classrooms. In the way or during the time that we start having more tools, we start having coping tools, how to deal with the things that are happening in our daily basis. We are not talking just about gangs. We are talking about police violence, state corruption, missing services. I don't know if that reminds you something a little bit about the Bronx in the late 70s. So that's why I understood that why hip hop was gonna be or was embraced the way it was embraced, because we were sharing the same conditions in different ways, but sharing a lot of similarities. So once we start having my generation or the generation before has studying these coping tools, we start regulating on ourselves. So we have the chance to start projecting ourselves into the future and understanding that we can work together we can work with organizations. So we start doing it. And hip hop has a saying that it's taken from the 5%ers. I really love that. It's the each one teach one. So that's what we did. We start sharing the things that we had um, with the resources that we had, and that's why b-boying was one of the first things that was implemented in classrooms. And they have a very beautiful case that they were started teaching breaking during the recess in the schools. So people, the kids, instead of playing soccer, they start b-boying, and that's something that got very popular. After that, the graffiti was something that you were able to go into the schools to make a piece of graffiti, and might the kids not be collaborating, but they were watching it in a daily basis. And then we came, Una Frecuencia came. So around 8 years ago, I look for hip hop and education on internet, and I found Today's Future Sound, and amazingly, the program called Next Level was coming to the country, and we were part of that. And we received the workshops, and by the next week, they were calling us to give the workshop with them. So I'm an educator and also passionate for the social welfare. So when I found this, I found what I wanted to do. So I started working on international networking, professional, getting more professional in our processes. And also we start developing our methodologies, because we understand how hip hop therapy works, how the therapeutic beat making works, but also we understand that we have a different reality. And the kids that we work, they live different realities. All the pictures that you are seeing, it's in one particular case that I'm super proud of. It's the workshop that we did in Tonacatepeque. Tonacatepeque, it's the most dangerous neighborhood in El Salvador. So if you understand how that numbers works in Central America or in the world, that means that we work in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Latin America, so in the world. The kids, they have to be taken from the schools to a neutral place, because the gangs, they were not gonna allow to the workshop happens. They allowed the workshops to happen, but not inside the community. So that was something that we did with the Red Cross from El Salvador in support with the Red Cross from Spain. And we went to 6 different schools to share the program that we have with Una Frecuencia. And we were the program that were chosen the most for the kids. So at the end, we have 5 sessions with each school, groups of 20 kids. Our program is designed to work in 20 sessions per year, per 3 years. So we start doing the first part. And these were kids that you cannot talk about flowers and bees. So they are really self-grounded. So you have to just be straight with them. And I found a beautiful video that showed why hip hop was born, and in order to stop the violence, and because people just want to have fun. So you don't have to kill each other. We can just battle with breaking or in a dance, and we can still see each other tomorrow. So that's something that we start sharing it. And what we did is that we did a mix of different things. So we take the beat making machines, we take digging tools, we take scratches, we took books, we took instruments, we took cameras, we took iPads for the kids that doesn't want to make beats or whatever. They can be drawing the album covers. And that's something that actually was embraced very good for the kids. And what we do is that we offer a different variety of activities, and the kids make their own research. We have the moments that we work together in order to pass some concepts, but from there they can be doing their own research. And other thing that we understood in the connection or in the relation level that Dr. Gan says, it's that if we have to play soccer in order to connect with them, we play soccer. So that's something that was a beautiful experience. And I want to share a testimonial with you about that experience. It says, this day has been really great for being the first time that I share with people who feel the same passion for music. With two wonderful teachers who had taught me a lot. They have shared their passion with each of one of us. They have been the best. I was fascinated by this workshop. I love living with all my classmates. It was the most fun I have ever had, and I am thrilled to have learned since was a dream come true for me. It was the beginning of a great dream. So, in order to close my question, we from there have the chance to do international exchanges. We went to Guatemala, we went to Honduras, we went to Costa Rica to share. We do in the thing that we have been doing